The crystalline spires of Nova Prime pierced the violet sky like frozen lightning, their surfaces refracting the light of 3 moons. Dr. James Harrison adjusted his atmospheric suit as he stepped onto the landing platform, his heart racing with equal parts excitement and apprehension. After 6 months of space travel, humanity's first contact specialist had finally arrived at the home world of the Celestians. The welcoming committee consisted of 4 tall, graceful beings whose skin seemed to shimmer with bioluminescent patterns. Their leader, Chief Researcher Thessa, stood at the forefront, her silver-tinted eyes regarding Harrison with barely concealed disdain. Behind her, researchers Venna, Kira, and Meridia whispered among themselves, their translucent hair moving in the light breeze. "Welcome to Nova Prime, Dr. Harrison." Thessa spoke through the universal translator, her tone clinical and detached. "Though I must admit, we expected your species to develop proper interstellar travel capabilities before attempting first contact." Harrison maintained his professional composure, though the jab at human technological advancement stung. "Thank you for hosting me, Chief Researcher. Earth is eager to establish diplomatic relations and share scientific knowledge." Venna, the youngest of the group, let out a melodic sound that Harrison's translator identified as laughter. "Share knowledge. What could your species possibly teach us? You've barely mastered fusion technology." The next few days proved challenging as Harrison attempted to establish a working relationship with the Celestian research team. Their civilization had indeed achieved remarkable technological advancement. Their quantum computing made Earth's most powerful systems look primitive, and their mastery of gravitational manipulation had allowed them to build cities that defied conventional physics. Yet Harrison noticed something peculiar about their society. Despite their technological prowess, the Celestians seemed to lack certain fundamental understanding of biological diversity and adaptation. Their pursuit of perfection had led them down a path of standardization, eliminating what they perceived as imperfections, but also limiting their potential for growth. During one particularly frustrating research session, Harrison decided to change his approach. Instead of focusing on technology, he began sharing stories of Earth's biodiversity, of how different species evolved and adapted to fill countless ecological niches. He spoke of humanity's ability to learn from nature, to find solutions in unexpected places. "Did you know," he said, pulling up a holographic display of a lotus leaf, "that some of our most advanced water-repellent materials were inspired by this simple plant?" For the first time, Meridia showed genuine interest. "You derive technological solutions from biological systems. We call it biomimicry," Harrison explained. "Nature has had billions of years to solve complex problems. Sometimes the best approach is to learn from what already works." This sparked a shift in their interactions. Though still skeptical, the Celestian researchers began asking more questions about Earth's ecosystems, about human adaptability, and about the seemingly chaotic but remarkably resilient nature of life on Earth. Thessa, however, remained aloof. "Interesting anecdotes, Dr. Harrison, but they don't change the fact that your species is centuries behind us in development." "Perhaps," Harrison replied carefully, "but development isn't always linear. Different paths can lead to different kinds of advancement." As weeks passed, Harrison's persistent respect and patience began to crack the Celestians' professional facade. They were particularly intrigued by human emotional responses, by the way Harrison could maintain enthusiasm despite their dismissal, by his ability to find humor in their criticism. One evening, as Nova Prime's moons cast their ethereal light across the research facility, Kira approached Harrison with an unexpected question. "How do you maintain such optimism in the face of constant failure?" Harrison smiled. "I don't see our interactions as failures. Every conversation, every small breakthrough in understanding, these are steps forward. Humanity has learned that progress often comes from persistence rather than perfection." His words seemed to resonate with something deep within the Celestian researchers. Though they maintained their air of superiority, subtle changes began to appear in their behavior. They started asking more questions about human culture, about Earth's history of overcoming challenges, about the diversity of thought and experience that shaped human progress. As the first month of his mission drew to a close, Harrison realized that the greatest barrier between their species wasn't technological, it was philosophical. The Celestians' pursuit of perfection had led them to view diversity as a weakness rather than a strength. Yet their curiosity about humanity's different approach was growing, opening the door to possibilities neither species had anticipated. The second month of Harrison's mission brought unexpected challenges as the Celestian research team intensified their scrutiny of human capabilities. The pristine laboratories of Nova Prime became a battleground of ideas, where every human achievement was dissected and often dismissed by the alien scientists. Venna had taken to following Harrison around the facility, recording his daily routines with unconcealed fascination. "Your species requires rest periods every planetary rotation," she noted one morning, watching him sip his synthesized coffee. "Such inefficiency." "We call it sleep," Harrison replied, hiding his amusement. "And sometimes our greatest insights come after a good rest. The human brain processes information differently during sleep." "Primitive," Meridia chimed in from her workstation, though Harrison noticed her taking notes. "Our consciousness remains active through all cycles." The dynamic shifted dramatically when Harrison introduced them to Earth's artistic achievements. He had brought a comprehensive database of human culture, and during one research session, he decided to share examples of Earth's classical music. As the notes of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony filled the laboratory, something extraordinary happened. Thessa, who had maintained her aloof demeanor, suddenly stood completely still, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing in rhythm with the music. This is mathematics," she whispered, her silver eyes wide. "But it's also something else. Emotion," Harrison explained. "Human art combines logic with feeling. We find beauty in both order and chaos." The revelation that humans could create something that moved even the stoic Celestians marked a turning point. The research team began requesting more examples of human creative expression, from poetry to painting, from dance to architecture. Kira, particularly, showed increasing interest in human literature. "Your species creates fictional narratives," she observed, scrolling through a collection of Earth's classic novels. "You intentionally tell stories that aren't true." "Fiction helps us explore possibilities," Harrison explained. "It's how we imagine what could be, not just what is." This concept seemed to trouble the Celestians deeply. Their society valued absolute truth and measurable reality. The idea of creating intentional untruths for emotional and intellectual exploration challenged their fundamental beliefs. Yet their curiosity continued to grow. Harrison often found them discussing human concepts among themselves when they thought he wasn't listening. They debated the meaning of metaphors, the purpose of symbolic expression, the value of subjective experience. Thessa remained the most resistant to these explorations. During one heated discussion about human innovation, she confronted Harrison directly. "Your species relies too heavily on emotion, on intuition. It makes you unpredictable, unreliable." "Perhaps," Harrison countered, "but it also makes us adaptable. When logic alone can't solve a problem, sometimes intuition can find a way." The tension between them crackled like static electricity. Harrison had begun to notice subtle changes in Thessa's behavior, the way her bioluminescent patterns fluctuated when they debated, how her usually perfect posture softened slightly in his presence. One evening, as Harrison worked late in the laboratory, he found Thessa studying Earth's historical records with intense concentration. "Your species has survived multiple near-extinction events," she noted, not looking up from the display. "We're resilient," Harrison replied. "Humanity has learned to adapt, to evolve, to find strength in our diversity." "It defies logical analysis," Thessa murmured. "By all reasonable calculations, your species should have destroyed itself centuries ago. Yet you continue to survive, to create, to explore." Harrison smiled. "Maybe that's because not everything worthwhile can be calculated." The statement hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Vessa's patterns shifted through colors Harrison had never seen before, and for a moment, he thought he glimpsed something beyond her carefully maintained facade. A flicker of uncertainty, of curiosity, of something almost like wonder. As the second month drew to a close, the dynamics within the research facility had grown increasingly complex. The Celestian researchers found themselves caught between their society's rigid beliefs and their growing fascination with human unpredictability. They maintained their air of superiority, but it had become a fragile shield, cracking under the weight of their curiosity. What none of them realized was that their interactions were about to trigger a discovery that would challenge everything both species thought they knew about themselves and each other. The boundaries between human and Celestian were beginning to blur in ways no one had anticipated, and the consequences would soon reshape their understanding of life itself. The third month on Nova Prime brought changes that nobody could have predicted. What began as a research project had evolved into something far more complex as the boundaries between professional curiosity and personal connection began to blur. The catalyst came during a routine genetic mapping session. Harrison had volunteered to let the Celestians study human DNA, hoping to bridge their scientific understanding. As Kira analyzed the results, her usual composure shattered. "This is impossible," she whispered, her luminescent patterns flickering rapidly. "Your genetic structure, it's adaptive at a fundamental level." The discovery sent shockwaves through the research team. Human DNA showed an unprecedented capacity for environmental adaptation, something the Celestians had long since engineered out of their own species in their quest for perfection. Vessa spent hours reviewing the data, her silver eyes reflecting the holographic displays. "Your imperfections," she finally said, her voice unusually soft, "they're not weaknesses at all. They're opportunities for growth." The revelation sparked a shift in their research focus. Instead of dismissing human characteristics as primitive, the Celestians began studying them with genuine fascination. They were particularly intrigued by the human ability to form emotional bonds, to adapt behavior based on empathy and intuition. Meridia, who had been the quietest of the group, began spending more time with Harrison in the botanical research dome. She was fascinated by his stories of Earth's rainforests, of ecosystems where countless species existed in complex interdependence. "Your world seems so chaotic," she observed one day, watching him tend to an earth plant he brought along. "Yet there's a harmony to it that we've lost in our pursuit of perfection." Harrison noticed the change in their interactions. The mockery had given way to genuine curiosity, and beneath that, something deeper was emerging. The Celestians began sharing their own stories, tales of their civilization's history, of the choices that had led them down the path of engineered perfection, and of the price they had paid for it. Venna, surprisingly, was the first to openly acknowledge the transformation. "We thought we had evolved beyond the need for emotional connection," she admitted during a late-night research session. "But watching you, studying your responses, perhaps we were wrong." The atmosphere in the research facility had changed dramatically. The Celestians' bioluminescent patterns began showing new colors, new rhythms that their society hadn't seen in generations. They were experiencing emotions they had thought long eliminated from their species. One evening, Harrison found Vessa in the observation dome, staring at the 3 moons of Nova Prime. Her usual perfect posture was relaxed, her patterns shifting in gentle waves of color. "We've been monitoring our own physiological responses to your presence," she said without turning. "The results are unexpected." Harrison moved to stand beside her. "In what way?" "Our bodies are changing," she replied, finally meeting his gaze. "Your presence, your different perspective, it's awakening genetic expressions we thought we had eliminated centuries ago. We're adapting." The implications were staggering. The very presence of human unpredictability, of emotional responses and adaptive thinking, was triggering changes in Celestian physiology. Their carefully engineered perfection was responding to the stimulus of difference, of chaos, of life in its raw and unfiltered form. As the team delved deeper into these changes, they discovered something even more remarkable. The Celestians' biological responses were strongest when they worked closely with Harrison, when they allowed themselves to experience emotions, to form connections beyond mere scientific inquiry. Kira was the first to voice what they had all begun to suspect. Our species diverged from natural evolution in pursuit of perfection, she said during a team meeting. But in doing so, we may have cut ourselves off from the very thing that makes evolution possible: the ability to change, to grow, to feel. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. The Celestians had prided themselves on rising above base emotions, above the messiness of natural selection. Yet here they were, their bodies and minds responding to the very things they had rejected. Harrison watched as his alien colleagues struggled with these revelations. Their perfect composure cracked more frequently now, showing glimpses of genuine emotion: curiosity, excitement, confusion, and something that looked remarkably like hope. What none of them realized yet was that these changes were just the beginning. Their genetic adaptations were about to take an unexpected turn, one that would challenge both species' understanding of evolution, compatibility, and the very nature of life itself. The fourth month brought revelations that shook the foundations of both human and Celestian understanding of biology. It began with Venna's unexplained symptoms, shifts in her bioluminescent patterns that none of their medical technology could explain, accompanied by physiological changes that defied their scientific understanding. The research facility buzzed with nervous energy as more of the Celestian researchers began experiencing similar changes. Meridia's usually cool skin temperature increased, while Kira reported unusual sensations she couldn't quantify. Even Thessa, despite her attempts to maintain professional distance, couldn't deny the transformations occurring within her own body. Our genetic structure is becoming more adaptive, Kira announced during an emergency meeting, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and excitement. It's as if proximity to human DNA has awakened dormant evolutionary pathways we thought were permanently deactivated. Harrison watched with growing concern as the Celestians struggled to comprehend these changes. Their carefully engineered biology was shifting in ways their ancestors had believed impossible. But the true shock came when Vesa finally ordered a complete genetic analysis of all affected Celestians. The laboratory fell silent as the results appeared on the holographic displays. The data was undeniable. The 4 Celestian researchers weren't just experiencing random mutations. Their bodies were developing genetic compatibility with human DNA. "This is unprecedented," Meridia whispered, her patterns pulsing with intense colors. "Our species has been genetically isolated for millennia. We engineered ourselves to be incompatible with any other form of life." The implications were staggering. The very presence of human adaptability had triggered a cascade of changes in Celestian biology, breaking down barriers their ancestors had deliberately put in place. But the most shocking discovery was yet to come. During a routine medical scan, Venna's readings revealed something impossible. She was carrying a hybrid embryo. The room erupted in chaos as the implications became clear. The genetic barriers between their species hadn't just weakened, they had completely broken down. "How is this possible?" Thessa demanded, her usual composure cracking as she stared at the medical data. "Our reproductive systems were engineered to be completely isolated from other species." Harrison worked tirelessly with the team to understand these developments. The hybrid embryo showed characteristics of both species: human adaptability combined with Celestian bioluminescence, Earth-like genetic diversity, merged with advanced Celestian cognitive capabilities. As they delved deeper into the phenomenon, more revelations emerged. All 4 Celestian researchers showed signs of pregnancy, each carrying a unique hybrid that defied their understanding of biology. The embryos were healthy, stable, and developing in ways that suggested they might possess the best qualities of both species. The news couldn't be contained forever. Word of the pregnancies reached the Celestian High Council, triggering immediate controversy. Conservative factions called for immediate termination of the embryos. viewing them as a threat to their species' engineered perfection. "They don't understand," Kira said during a private meeting with Harrison, her hand protectively covering her abdomen. "These children aren't a corruption of our genetics. They're the key to our species' survival." She was right. Further research revealed that Celestian genetic engineering had led them into an evolutionary dead end. Their pursuit of perfection had made them unable to adapt to changing environments. The hybrid embryos represented a way forward, a chance to reintroduce the adaptive capabilities they had sacrificed. Thessa, who had once been the most skeptical of human value, now became their strongest defender. "Our children represent the future," she declared during a confrontation with council representatives. "They carry within them the solution to problems we didn't even know we had." The debate raged across Nova Prime as more data emerged about the hybrid's potential. The embryos showed signs of enhanced cognitive abilities, adaptive genetics, and a unique blend of physical characteristics that suggested they might be better suited for space exploration than either parent species. Harrison found himself at the center of a biological and cultural revolution. The very qualities the Celestians had once mocked in humanity — adaptability, emotional capacity, genetic diversity — were now proving to be their salvation. As the fourth month drew to a close, the research facility had become both a scientific hub and a sanctuary. The 4 pregnant Celestians worked tirelessly to document and understand their unprecedented condition, while Harrison coordinated with both Earth and sympathetic members of the Celestian Council to ensure their safety. What had begun as a FirstContact mission had evolved into something far more significant, the beginning of a new chapter in the evolution of both species. The barriers between human and Celestian were dissolving, not just culturally but biologically, creating possibilities that neither species had imagined possible. The final month on Nova Prime marked a turning point in interstellar history. The research facility had been transformed into a heavily guarded sanctuary, protecting not just the 4 pregnant Celestians, but the future of both species. Outside its walls, debates raged across 2 worlds about the implications of this unprecedented genetic merger. The Celestian High Council remained divided, while younger members saw the hybrid pregnancies as a path to evolutionary advancement. Traditionalists viewed them as a threat to their carefully engineered society. Earth's response was equally complex, with scientists excited by the possibilities, while others feared the implications of human-alien hybridization. "They fear what they don't understand," Harrison observed during a quiet moment with Thessa in the botanical dome. Her bioluminescent patterns had grown stronger with the pregnancy, creating dancing lights that reflected off the crystal walls. "Fear of change is universal, it seems," she replied, her hand resting on her growing abdomen. "Even in a species that engineered fear out of their genetic code." The hybrid embryos continued to develop in ways that astounded both human and Celestian medical experts. Each showed signs of unprecedented genetic stability, combining the best aspects of both species. Kira's detailed scans revealed that the children would possess both human adaptability and Celestian cognitive capabilities, along with entirely new traits that neither species had seen before. Venna, whose pregnancy was the most advanced, worked tirelessly to document every development. "Their genetic structure is like a bridge," she explained during a research presentation, "not just between our species, but between engineered perfection and natural evolution." The turning point came when Meridia discovered something remarkable in the hybrid genetic code. The children weren't just combining existing traits, they were developing new ones. Their DNA showed signs of enhanced regenerative capabilities, improved environmental adaptation, and the potential for forms of consciousness that neither species had experienced. "They're not just hybrids," Meridia announced, her voice filled with wonder. "They're the next step in both our species' evolution." This revelation changed the tenor of discussions on both worlds. The Celestian Council could no longer ignore the potential benefits these children represented. Their society had reached the limits of engineered evolution. These hybrids offered a path forward they hadn't known they needed. Earth's scientific community, meanwhile, saw opportunities for advancing human evolution in ways they had never imagined possible. The hybrid genetics suggested solutions to problems that had plagued humanity for generations: disease resistance, environmental adaptation, even extended lifespan. As the pregnancies progressed, the facility became a symbol of unity. Scientists from both worlds worked together, setting aside prejudices to study and protect these remarkable new lives. Even the most hardened critics couldn't deny the potential benefits these children represented. The births, when they came, were historic. Venna's child was the first, a daughter with iridescent skin that shifted colors with her emotions and eyes that held the depth of human expression. One by one, the others followed, each unique yet all carrying the promise of a new future. Harrison stood with Thessa as she held their daughter for the first time. The child's skin glowed with patterns that matched her mother's, while her curious eyes and expressive features showed her human heritage. "She's perfect," Thessa whispered, her voice carrying an emotion that her ancestors had tried to engineer away. Not because she was designed to be, but because she represents possibility. The impact of these births rippled across both civilizations. The Celestian Council, faced with undeniable evidence of the benefits of genetic diversity, began reconsidering their society's approach to evolution. Earth's governments, seeing the potential for peaceful cooperation with an advanced species, increased their support for interstellar diplomacy. As Harrison's mission drew to a close, the research facility had become more than a scientific outpost. It was the birthplace of a new era. The children, with their unique blend of human and celestian traits, represented not just the fusion of two species, but the beginning of a new chapter in the story of life itself. "We came here thinking we would teach each other about our differences," Harrison reflected during the facility's transformation into a permanent human Celestian research center. "Instead, we learned that those differences were the key to our future." The legacy of that FirstContact mission would echo through generations. The hybrid children grew to become bridges between worlds, their very existence proving that the greatest achievements come not from engineering away diversity, but from embracing it. In them, both species found something they hadn't known they were looking for: a future where perfection wasn't about eliminating differences, but celebrating them.